It's the deflector in chief, a delusional Joe Biden giving a rare sit-down interview and dismissing major problems plaguing his presidency. The president is not very concerned about Republicans looking into his corrupt son, Hunter.
The public's not going to pay attention to that. They want these guys to do something. If the only thing they can do is make up things about my family, it's not going to go very far.
But in reality, there is bipartisan support to look into the slimy first son. 61% support an investigation. And then there's that giant Chinese spy balloon. We just learned some startling new details. The spy craft contained multiple antennas that were capable of collecting communications. But apparently, Biden thinks it's no harm, no foul.
Have relations now between the U.S. and China taken a big hit,
No.
frankly?
No.
How do you know?
I know. I talked to him.
You've talked to
Talked to Xi Jinping before. And our team talks to their people.
during this and
Yeah,
since?
after I haven't talked to him during this.
Right. And President Biden downplaying his classified documents scandal the only way he knows how, by throwing his staff under the bus.
They've informed me not to speak to this issue to any way try to prejudice the investigation that's going on. The kinds of things they picked up are things that from 1974 and stray papers. There may be something else I don't know. But one of the things that happened is that what was not done well is as they packed up my offices to move them, they didn't do the kind of job that should have been done to go thoroughly through every single piece of literature that's there.
Dana, I'll go to you first. A real class act, huh? Throwing his staff under the bus. And he says they weren't handling it correctly. But what's amazing about that last quote is that he says items since 1974, which means he clearly wasn't entitled. And maybe for the past 50 years, he's been taking classified documents. And did his staffer put those documents in the garage near the Corvette?
Okay, so the strangest thing is, didn't he just say that the lawyers told me not to ask what's in the papers,
Yes.
but now he knows that the papers are from 1974? Yes. How could the papers be from 1974 if they came from the Penn Biden Center when they were packing up the Obama-Biden White House? And the staffer, they are. It's not just him that's throwing her under the bus. There was an article the other day saying this Kathy Chung, she's really disorganized. She was an executive assistant. I'm sure she wasn't disorganized working for somebody like the vice president. So it is unfortunate, I think, for her that that's happening, but I think it also goes to show that the buck does not stop with him, at least on these particular things. And then whenever a politician says, nobody cares about that, you can assure that everyone, one, they do care about it, or at least are paying some attention to it, and then you'll be sure that the media will talk about it, and they'll poll people about it, and they'll ask people. And why would they do that? Well, one reason is because in the last administration, the Democrats, including Joe Biden, raised all sorts of questions about family ties and money when it came to Trump and overseas dealings. And remember, they tried after Ivanka Trump for China licensing for making some of her shoes, et cetera. Well, Americans have shown that 61% of them do think that this should be investigated. So they're not being partisan. This is a bipartisan thing, and that should be fine, right? If you thought when something was good for the goose, I guess it's good for the gander.
Oh, there you go again.
And speaking of that, Greg, I want you to listen to this sound about the Americans not really caring
I don't want
in
to
the
listen
polls. You're going to have to,
All right.
or I won't go to you.
When you look at the polls, CBS poll, 64% of Americans think the economy is in bad shape. There's an NBC poll, 71% think the country's on the wrong track. Why the disconnect?
Because the polls don't matter anymore. Every time you turn on the news, are you reporting any positive news? I'm not meaning you personally, right, editorially. Right. And so you turn on the television and everything's down.
Oh, man. That is deteriorating fast. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think clearly after hearing that. 61% said there should be an investigation into Hunter Biden. Yep. The 39% remaining are having his baby. He's right about not paying attention because there's so many other things going on, right? The luxury of having so many scandals and so many problems is how can you focus when you have inflation, you have crime, you have immigration, and then you have his political scandals, whether that obsesses the media more than maybe the public would. So you just can't focus on one. So that's his luxury, is that he's got a lot of houses on fire. So you may not focus on this stuff. It's a brilliant plan. And you stole my other point. I was going to say, like, about the family stuff. He says, you know, if you make up stuff about my family, you won't get very far. Well, the media and the Democrats went really far making up stuff. And then when you compare the thing that was most made up, which was the Steele dossier, right? And the Steele dossier was based on a P tape of hookers peeing on a bed that Obama once slept in. Probably one of the, just completely fabricated, totally unbelievable. And they believe that. And then you flip side to Hunter, where you actually have video. You have videos, you have pictures, you have texts, emails, and they're saying that's just Russian disinformation. Don't believe that. You actually see it. It's real, and they're denying it. So the fact is, I mean, he might have a point that, people might not care, but what helped him was the size and the scope of Hunter's degradations that made it easy to deny. It's like, that can't be true. That can't be true. And I go, well, take a look at it. It is true.
All right, Jesse, let's talk about the balloon. Now, the Chinese spy balloon that they shot down was likely capable of listening in on Americans' communications and pinpointing the location of those conversing on the ground. And then we've got General Austin, who said earlier that we limited the communications. What does that tell you?
It tells me China knows all the texts I've been sending about Tarlov. And it's too bad that's going to leak eventually. And it also tells me they've been lying to us the whole time, because Biden says he's 100% confident they got nothing. And then the Pentagon comes out the next day and they're like, we're pretty sure they didn't get as much. Listen, Biden was asked, are relations changing since they've been spying on us? And he said, no, they're the same. So countries can just float balloons over us and spy on us, and it's not going to change our relationship? She goes, well, how did you know? And he goes, well, yeah, I talked to the Chinese. And she goes, really? And he goes, well, not recently. And then later he goes, well, actually, things are changing. The relationship has changed.
But he said, General Austin said we limited the comms, okay, so that they couldn't get any more communications. So why did they let it fly across the rest of the country?
They actually said that they needed to knock it down in the Atlantic because the water was warmer.
Yeah.
They said if they knocked it down and by Alaska, it's too cold for our scuba divers. So we had to let it take a long trip across the country to make it nice and toasty for our divers. I hate Judy Woodruff, and I don't hate a lot of people.
Wow, what?
I'm going to take that back.
Take it back, Jesse.
If anybody hates her, it's me. No, I don't hate her. It's a strong word.
Know why. Go ahead.
The laptop has been verified, number one. Number two, Hunter admitted it was real. Yep. And she has the president of the United States sitting there, and her question is, how are you going to handle the president? How are you going to handle attacks on you from Republicans? That was the question of all questions. And he goes, well, none of it's real and no one cares. Well, a good interviewer would say, well, Americans care, as the poll says a lot of them do. And what exactly isn't true in the laptop, Mr. President? Is it the big guy email? What is it? She botched it. And I'm not going to let her go for that. Also,
what did she do to you, Jesse?
Yeah.
Because you're sitting there with the president. Okay, and she's a government employee because I even think, it's like your own employee is asking you questions and he's saying there's nothing to see here, and she goes, moving on. And I believe he proposed an increase in funding for NPR, PBS. Yes.
Oh, you think he paid off Judy Woodruff for this interview?
The questioning was weak.
I thought it was really weak question, but I do retract, and I never retract. I retract.
And
smart move, Jesse. But the sad part about it, Jessica, is it was his 33rd interview since he's been president. Obama at this point had 273, and Trump had 157. I mean, why is he hiding?
I have been an enthusiastic supporter of him getting out there more. I think he actually does a good job in them. I understand that you were disappointed in the Hunter Biden line of questioning, but people were nervous about the State of the Union. It had 72% of people had a positive reaction to it. When he goes out there and he goes ad lib, off the cuff, whatever it is, he usually gets a bump in the polling. That's what happened during the primary. And I hope that he'll do a Super Bowl interview with us. I think that that would be great. And a lot of people would get to see him, you know, maybe a more casual setting, kicking back, doing the American stuff, talking about football, also the agenda, kicking off your 2024 campaign. So I've always been for that. In terms of the balloon, we had Republicans and Democrats who went to the intel briefing come out and say that they think that it was handled appropriately. So whether that's about divers who can't freeze to death or whatever when they're going down there, or that maybe there's more going on here than we know because these people are privy to information that we can't know, which is how it's supposed to be. Like Mitt Romney made it clear. He said, was everything absolutely perfect in how it's handled? No, but nothing in a military operation ever is. So I'm sure the Chinese got something.
So Mitt Romney's in on it.
Mittens
Yes.
is chief.
But, you know, I think the real question is, OK, let's assume that that's the case. What about after? What did the president say that scares Xi Jinping to not do it again?
In terms of the relations changing right away, so Blinken was supposed to be there, right, on Monday, and then that trip got canceled.
They didn't cancel it until after we heard about it.
I understand that, and I know that the timeline was not satisfactory for many people. It's obviously not ideal if it's just spotted by people in Montana versus that they're going to tell us about something like this. But this whole idea that we can sit here at a table and understand the dynamics of tracking a Chinese spy balloon better than
How dare you? How dare you?
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.